Hey all you bitizens of the internet, welcome back to Learnabit. So sorry about the pause there. I've actually been incredibly busy with grad school and with work, but I'm glad to be back, and I promise there will be some new videos coming out real soon. Alright, so in today's video, we're going to be welcoming back the International OCD Foundation's Executive Director, Dr. Jeff Szymanski, and National OCD Advocate Ethan Smith, and we're going to be exploring how obsessive compulsive disorder is treated effectively. And hopefully we'll bust a couple of myths about it along the way. In the previous two videos, we explored first, what is OCD, and then second, what might cause OCD. So this is going to be the third and final installment in our IOCDF interview series, at least for now, although mental health will still be one of this channel's major themes moving forward, and hopefully we'll get the chance to speak with them sometime soon in the future. Without further ado, let's learn a bit more about the world of OCD treatment. All right, so let's just jump right into our topic here. What does effective treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder look like?
So there are two first-line treatments for OCD. One is what's called exposure response prevention, and we recommend people start with this. One, because although it is a difficult treatment to engage in, once you learn how to do it, it's something that you keep in your pocket and you can always have. You do need to find a specialist who knows how to do this treatment and has been trained in doing this treatment. It's essentially a face your fears therapy. And so if you're afraid of dogs, and every time you see a dog, you run from it, you're never going to learn anything else about dogs other than that they're dangerous. So it's the same basic principle in OCD. Whatever your obsessions are, whatever your anxiety is about, instead of doing something to protect yourself, your compulsive behaviors, instead of running away, you actually stand your ground. You face your fear and you learn something new about the world, and you learn something new about that thing that makes you anxious. The other style of treatment is medication, which is a common psychiatric treatment. This is going to be primarily if you go to a psychiatrist and you are looking for medication for OCD, they're going to prescribe one of the many medications that are called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That mouthful just means that it's adjusting one of the neurochemicals in your brain. And then there's some other medications that a psychiatrist might try after that if it isn't as successful. Some folks respond really well to both, and others find that if you start with ERP and or medication therapy, and then you add on what we call an adjunctive therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy is now a therapy that is being used quite a bit more. And this is really acceptance and commitment therapy we call strategies that kind of supercharge your exposure response prevention. It's much more about how to really engage in the treatment, how to stay engaged, how to stay motivated. And then another aspect of kind of an adjunctive treatment is family therapy. And I'm kind of famous these days for saying OCD is a family affair. And so it doesn't just affect the person with OCD, it affects everyone around them. So having your parents, if you're younger, or even if you're older, be involved in the treatment to some extent, getting coached on what to do and what not to do, what's helpful and what's not helpful. Don't engage in the compulsive behavior with them, although that's a very common experience families have. Don't keep answering quite the same question over and over again. That's reassurance-seeking compulsion from your family member. So many people over time find some variation of these types of treatment effective. Again, you can also now, in our current state of affairs, you can access this treatment on video. There are some self-help programs that are helpful via app or digital platforms that will walk you through exposure response prevention exercises. Some people find support groups extremely helpful. And one of the things we do at the foundation is to try and create communities for people to meet each other with OCD, which actually can be therapeutic all by itself.
Everything that Jeff touched on, I experienced from a lived experience perspective. When I first got diagnosed at 14, I was immediately put on a medication. I was put on Prozac. This was in 97. And throughout my experience in that 17 years from diagnosis to finding the proper treatment, I was on a myriad of SSRIs and other medications as well. Some to some benefit, and some not. It typically waxed and waned for me. I would find a benefit in them in the beginning, and then after a year or two, it would subside and OCD would sort of take over again. But really, like I said, I hit rock bottom about 17 years later at 30, 31. And that's when I finally found the right treatment, which was exposure response prevention, stayed on medication, as well as going through ERP, as well as ACT, acceptance commitment therapy. And the combination of all three of those, as well as heavy participation with my family. I was fortunate enough in that regard to get my family involved in treatment very early on, which significantly helped my experience in getting better the way I did. What's interesting though is it's very nuanced. It's a very nuanced level of care. And, for those of us suffering, it can feel a bit lab ratty at times, especially with the medication, because they don't know how the medication is going to respond. There's different kinds, there's different types of SSRIs. Everybody responds differently. That's why we don't like, if we don't have a psychiatrist in the room, we typically don't like to talk details about medications because it's completely unique and different to everyone. As far as my story goes, I definitely participated in a variety of those things, all of which I still do now. I still go to therapy once a week. I'm still on medication. One of the reasons that I advocate is just to let people know that, as sick as I got, there is hope, there is help. You can get better. You can lead, for lack of a better word, a pretty kick-ass life. And I'm a better person for it. At the end of the day, you want all the tools why would you not want all the tools to be able to help you live the most meaningful, full life possible? There's no reason to be treatment resistant. There's no reason to be therapy resistant. There's no reason to be medication resistant. At the end of the day, we always like to use analogies. If you had diabetes, if you had cancer, would you sit there and pick well, we know all of these work, but I want to only do those two. It's like, if they all work, let's do all of them, and OCD is kind of the same way. It's like, especially around the stigma around mental health and mental illness, is that, use all the tools at your disposal to get the most out of your life.
So a big part of the reason that I wanted to make this interview series in the first place was because in the past few months, there have been some popular podcasts and posts by social media influencers saying things like that OCD is caused by quote unquote soul wounds or heavy metals or something like that, and how you treat it is by buying their diet supplements, drinking certain juices, spending time at friends' houses, etc. Do these treat OCD?
Can you please expand my head 10 times the size, turn it red, and make steam come out of my ears?
I absolutely can.
Just like that. Oh, there it is. That's how I feel right there. Oh, yeah, that's how this stuff makes me feel.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. So look, your emotions are attached to your body. Take good care of your body. That does not treat your OCD. That will keep your OCD symptoms from getting worse. We know stress exacerbates OCD symptoms. We know physical illness will exacerbate symptoms. We know significant transitions will exacerbate symptoms. So there's some truth to, if you take care of your body, it will help your OCD symptoms. Doesn't treat your OCD symptoms. Here's why. What is anxiety? Anxiety is information your brain is giving you that you may be in danger. It's all anxiety is. You don't experience it as a maybe in danger. The more intense the anxiety is, the more the message feels like you are in danger. The problem is when you have OCD, you actually have a circuit in your brain that's not working. It's a false alarm that's going off too frequently. How in the world are you going to fix that? If you want to have your brain process the world in a less anxious way, you have to go out and experience the world.
I think you're dealing with a very sensitive, very desperate population of people. And because of the stigma that we spoke about in regards to some of these other subtypes of OCD, this is where false claims about help and hope can be very, very dangerous. This is why the OCD community gets really upset when somebody claims that celery juice can be a cure, or altering your gut health, or, heavy metals, any of these things. You're dealing with people, and I was one of them for 17 years, that probably would have done all of those things if I'd found them, because I was so desperate for help. I was so miserable. I was in so much pain. What can I do to take it away? What, this guy is a professional, quote unquote, and says that this is the answer. I will do it. I will do whatever it takes. OCD loves time. OCD will take advantage of time not spent beating it down, and it will, I always say it's malignant. It will get nastier. It will get meaner. It will take over more of your life, and it will make your life very, very small. So the more you're engaging in these sort of snake oil ideas and sales pitches, the worse your OCD is getting, and the more money you're spending, and the more time you're losing. And the saddest part is when you realize that it doesn't work or didn't work. That's when it eats away at your hope. And hope is one of the strongest tools and weapons we have in fighting OCD, especially when we finally find the right treatment, because the right treatment is scary to do. Exposing yourself to your greatest fears doesn't sound fun. That sounds terrifying. Who wants to walk through a fire when you can walk around it? One of the biggest motivators for that is hope. The belief that you can get better, the belief that you will get better, the belief that you can have a meaningful life, the belief that you can get your life back, the belief that you can do things that you couldn't do before. You can get back to doing things that you did before. But all of these ridiculous claims, they just suck hope, because once they don't work, you're like, that's something else that failed me. What's wrong with me? My OCD must be different. I'm sicker than everybody else. These are all the questions that we ask ourselves, that goes through our mind. It did for me. Even in residential treatment, I felt that my OCD was different, that I was more severe, that I was the one case that could not be helped. When these things get out there and they get attraction, and especially with social media, you've got 2, 3, 4 million followers, and you see all these people commenting. It's painful to see, because we know how it's going to end, and it's not going to end good. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why all of those things are so detrimental to our community, is that, we have to scratch and claw for every inch that we make in reducing the stigma and educating. And so that's the other thing, is when somebody just says something to sell a book or get attention or increase their followers, and it reaches millions of people, and it's so hard to move this ball forward in reducing stigma and educating, getting the word out there about OCD, but it's so easy to move it backwards with one article, with one tweet by a influencer or something like that. We can get pushed back. So that's why those things are so damaging to our community and individuals as a whole.
If you or a loved one are in need of some good resources on OCD, check out iocdf.org, which I've put a link to in the description below. A huge thank you to Jeff and Ethan, and to the International OCD Foundation as a whole, for letting me collaborate with them. I had a ton of fun and learned a lot, and I hope you all did too. My next video will be a long-awaited languages video, so subscribe to my channel to be sure you don't miss it. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you believe this video deserved a like or a comment, that would be greatly appreciated. This has been Learnabit. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.